Do we even have an intro? Hey, everybody, we're rusty, but we're here. And Jared is in
this way.
AJ Herschel is in North Carolina, so we're all three in North Carolina. But before we get into it, let's hit the intro. Are you in North Carolina?
I'm not actually. I'm right across the line. If I had known, I could have gone across the line since I didn't get invited to the rest of the in-person session here.
Sorry. Yeah. You're like a good 6 hours from the coast, right?
Oh, more than that. It's about 7.5.
Oh, wow. Well, you can run over here now. We'll wait for you.
Yeah, it's like
4-hour stream right here.
It's like the same distance from where I am at the North Carolina line to the North Carolina coast as it is from like here to St. Louis.
Whoa. Okay.
Which you wouldn't think that that's the, but it is. Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing how long and big North Carolina is.
Yeah.
Well, we're all together one way or another here, and we just wanted to get back on. I thought it'd be good since AJ Herschel's family is
in town.
Did I call you AJ Herschel?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is in town visiting.
Well, actually, no, you called me Jared first.
That's right. I'm like so mixed up. So yeah, just I thought we have to get out. You guys were harassing me because I hadn't been on, and even responding to any texts or anything, and so yeah, so it's good to be back on the horn, and we're getting down to crunch time. I forgot that we've got the draft coming up in only 2 weeks, right?
Less than 2, like 12 days. Yeah,
it's crazy.
Now, do you guys feel like this is going to be a more interesting draft than last year? Because it seemed like last year was like, at least for the first 10, is like boring.
Yeah. Like I'm having now to be like, who were the picks last year?
Yeah, exactly.
I can't even like seriously, who was the number 1 pick? I don't even remember off.
We were just talking about it was Burrow.
Burrow.
Chase Young.
Right. And then Chase Young.
And then who?
Chase Young. And then eventually it was Herbert and Tua and all those guys. Okay. Yeah.
And then Ruggs went before the other receivers. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I remember now. It was just like I needed that little like kickstart of Burrow to remember like, oh yeah. Okay.
We spent so much time covering it last time that it like overloaded our sensors at this point.
Yeah. Right.
Draft.
Right.
We got Anthony already in the chat. What's up, Anthony? He said, Roto Hackers are back.
Yes, sir.
And we are back.
Better than ever.
It's the best way to build an audience is just take long periods of time off. Just drop completely off the radar. It's a guaranteed formula for success.
Yeah, and to come back without telling anybody.
Yes.
Just out of the blue.
Right. Our marketing team is one person. It's Judah McNeil. It's one person, and that's it. And I will let you judge what kind of job that he is doing.
I'm going for the counterintuitive marketing. It's a new kind of.
So you're following the same plan as your fantasy advice.
Oh, that's pretty good.
See, I haven't skipped a beat here. I'm just picking right back up.
We're just gonna look at Jared's computer. He's got a piece of paper of 3 months worth of one-liners.
I know, dude. They come naturally. Now, during that long, dry, no Roto Hackers time, a lot happened.
Yeah.
We had a lot of free agents. Last time we were talking together
was before the Super Bowl.
Before the Super Bowl, we were thinking, some of us were hoping that Matthew Stafford was going to the Colts.
Yeah.
And that did not happen. But so that was the first thing that happened. What do you guys think about him going down to the Rams?
Yeah, I think it's big. I think it's really big for LA. I mean, this is a team that only a couple of years ago went to the Super Bowl, admittedly, with mostly the same defense. Granted, they don't have Gurley, but he was banged up by the time they got there anyway. And they had Jared Goff at quarterback. Now you've got Matthew Stafford, who in my opinion is a vastly better quarterback than Jared Goff, and an offense with a good offensive line, great weapons, and hopefully a functioning running back core, which I don't know who's going to lead them in carries this year after last year. But still, I like Stafford. I like their offense. They retained most of their defense without giving up a lot of cap space. This makes them Super Bowl contenders for me. That for sure, immediately for me.
Yeah, I mean, Goff, I think, was always what was holding him back, So, it's not like Matt Stafford's a top 5 quarterback. He's probably right on that top 10 bubble. Mm-hmm. But, I think you're going to him from a guy who you just never knew. I mean, he might on a given day be one of the 5 or so worst quarterbacks in the league or something, depending on how he played. So yeah, I think that's a big deal.
Well, see, to me though, like for me, it's the same thing as when you guys were talking about him going to the Colts. You guys have a way higher estimation of Matthew Stafford than I do. Just somebody's texting.
Yeah, I mean, in the defense of Stafford though, he's been stuck in Detroit, where they never had a great defense, never really had incredible weapons outside of Calvin Johnson and Kenny Golladay, and never really ever had a running game. And this is a guy that almost threw for 5,000 yards, who plays through injuries, admittedly not very well, but still will play through injuries in a tough division where you got to play the Bears defense twice and the Packers twice every single year.
Well, it's not like the Rams play.
Okay, yeah, sure. But still.
And it's not like, I mean, it isn't a Kirk Cousins situation where we're like, oh, can he, what throws are you going to have to, how are you going to have to set up your offense in order for him to be successful? Matthew Stafford has a massive cannon arm. If he can, if he gets in a system with a good team around him and a coach who can, put him in a position to, kind of do what the Colts did with Phillip Rivers last year, where 2 years ago, Phillip Rivers was terrible with the Chargers, and then the Colts made something out of him. So if they could do that with him and improve him, then a good offensive-minded coach, he's obviously still going to get one in LA. There with what is it, McVay? Yeah.
Yep.
So I mean, I think it will. I think it will make a big difference.
Well, I mean, both of you guys are talking about the success of the Rams, maybe going to the Super Bowl. But what is that? I mean, that to me, that doesn't necessarily translate to fantasy, right? Like, I mean, if you look at Rivers for your example, he did decent at the end of the year by the time he was really clicking with them. But man, for fantasy, he was not a source of fantasy gold there. Right. Do you think Stafford? Well, it will be different for Stafford. I mean, he's got a new system. He's got, a complicated system. It's not like, I mean, McVay's good, but he's also very complicated. What do you guys think as far as fantasy?
I don't know. I mean, he's not going to be like on my, he's not going to be at the top of my who do I want to draft as my fantasy quarterback list. I wouldn't mind taking a chance on him as a second quarterback or, or having him in best ball leagues. But, I mean, in fantasy football, you have 10 starters or so. Is he, somebody that I really want as one of my, as a starter? No, not really. But 2/3 of the league falls into that category, more than 2/3 of the league. So, yeah.
Interesting. Okay, well, what were some of the other big? Because we don't have a ton of time tonight. What were some of the other big acquisitions?
Yeah, Kenny Galladay's a Giant, so take that as you will.
Interesting. Yeah, another Lion going to play with kitty cats. He is not. I don't think this is a big upgrade for Galladay. What do you guys think?
No, I don't like that situation for him.
No.
And maybe, I don't know, maybe it turns out better. We had a bunch of receivers who went into situations with new teams, DeAndre Hopkins, Stephon Diggs, that played well, but they were playing with better quarterbacks.
Yes.
So, and
who's his coach? His
coach is Joe Judge,
right.
who was the Patriots something coach. Like, I don't think he wasn't even a coordinator. I think he was like a linebackers coach or something, and then jumped all the way to being head coach of the Giants. So it's not like an offensive minded coach. Jason Garrett is the offensive coordinator still. So yeah, I don't, and I mean, the Giants wide receiver situation always seems to just be just this muddled, like, oh yeah, Evan Ingram's going to play half the games.
That's not funny, Jared.
Sterling Shepard's going to play. He's going to be
Darius
there.
Slayton's going to have 3 good games at some point.
Slayton's going to, right? and then you've got, what's going to happen with Saquon Barkley. He's going to, if he's back and healthy, he's going to be the focal point. So yeah, I don't like the situation for Galladay. I mean, I think, obviously last year with it was actually, he was out and Stafford was in. But if he had a fairly good situation there in Detroit for a while, where it was just Matthew Stafford chucking the ball to him, apart from those random handful of Marvin Jones blow up games. So I don't love the situation for Galladay, but he ended up being the only sort of big receiver to move, or the only one, so far. Godwin stayed in Tampa. Allen Robinson, I guess, is going to be staying with the Bears. And Antonio Brown, he'll move on somewhere, I guess. Are they going to be able to have the same kind of...
No, I think they're going to be able to keep him, right?
I don't know. They just signed Giovanni Bernard, of all people, after re-signing absolutely everybody else. So I don't know how much money Tampa Bay has.
Yeah. So
it's not like Giovanni was like a
big acquisition. Yeah, but like they were already like this close in terms of salary cap to money. They re-signed everybody, extended Brady's contract to spread the money out through multiple years, and they're going to have to sign draft picks.
Let's talk about Giovanni, because I think it's possible that they just let Vaughn go.
Keyshawn Vaughn?
Keyshawn Vaughn. They did not like him last year.
Yeah, and I remember Ryan N wasn't the biggest fan of him either.
That's true. But it would be weird to let him go. He's got probably the lowest salary of all of their running backs, right?
Exactly.
Are they going to keep 4 running backs? They definitely need someone like... they need a pass catcher. Their pass catching was terrible last year. I think it was
Fournette did a fine job when he came in, though. That was late in the season.
32nd in the league as far as caught passes. They were terrible. And he barely threw. Brady barely threw where he usually does. Could Giovanni Bernard be his little James White?
Yeah. Maybe. But there's 4 running backs there, so I'm not touching it, no matter what. No, I am allergic to running back by committee. It is horrifying to me. 2 running back maximum in a backfield. It was frustrating enough having to deal with Rojo and Fournette last year. And this is a team with so many weapons that it's hard to pinpoint who's even going to get the most points per week.
So do you think they could get – who do you think they're going to get rid of, Jared? Do you think they get rid of Rojo?
If anybody, or they just hang on to all of them and not re-sign Antonio, even though Antonio tweeted that the Bucs should sign Antonio.
I kind of like AJ said. Unless they either, I don't think they're getting rid of Fournette. And so unless they got rid of Rojo or Fournette, I don't really care about that situation, because it's just going to be a mess. And so I don't care what third running back they keep. It's just, that's something I'll avoid.
Now, some of the other ones you were mentioning the Bears.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk a little bit about.
Well, it was the quarterback. It was the quarter. We had to settle all the quarterbacks. So, at the start of the season, it was like, where's Deshaun? Is Deshaun going somewhere? That's a whole other thing. And then Matt Stafford, and so then he got that settled. And then it was like, well, is Dak going to go somewhere? Is Russell Wilson going to get traded? So obviously these things were never going to happen, and that's why, like with say like the Colts situation, which we'll get to in a minute, where they traded for Carson Wentz, and people are like, oh, Carson Wentz. Like, under the circumstances, I'll take Carson Wentz because Dak's not getting traded. The Texans, regardless of everything else that's going on, weren't going to be trading Deshaun in the division, and I don't think Seattle was ever really serious about trading Russell Wilson. So then once Matt Stafford was off the board, what's the next best option? Well, Carson Wentz has shown that he can be good in the right circumstances. So the Colts, there's no one else either in free agency or via trade. What it would take to trade up would be astronomical, as we saw from the 49ers moving up like 9 spots to get the third quarterback in the draft, which, may work out for them, but you're still, you're going to take your pick after 2 quarterbacks are off the board. So, so I was pleased under the circumstances with what the Colts gave up for Wentz. But first, we will go to what the Bears social media tweeted out as,
oh my goodness,
as QB1.
That's right. The big QB1, the Red Rocket is in.
How do you feel about QB1, AJ?
Look, initially when it happened, I think I went stone-faced for about an hour. I just didn't say anything to anyone. But when I thought about it, and then the news broke that, like, we tried to give up 3 first-rounders, 2 starting players, and extra picks for Russell Wilson, and Seattle said no. So, like, at that point, you're not going to get him. There's no way you give up, 4 first round. At that point, they're just not trading him at that point. That just means they're not going to trade him. So he's off the board. Wentz is already off the board. And so at that point, and we're already, our cap space was like this. I think we're barely right under there. We had to get rid of Kyle Fuller just to fit under the cap space, who was our number 1 corner for the last 3 years. So with our options monetarily and with the draft capital that we had and the slim chances of a rookie coming out and putting us in a Super Bowl position, it's exactly what I probably should have expected to happen. So I'm not surprised at all.
And supposedly, I was just going to add that supposedly the Bears delivered a better offer for Wentz, but he wanted to go play. He played for Frank Reich. He had his best year under Frank Reich before.
Yep.
And he was basically just like, no. And so, they more or less, they didn't really, I guess, I don't know if they had to trade him to the Colts and not the Bears, but somehow, I don't know if that was like a respect thing or if he said, I won't play or what. Regardless, it seems like the Bears did make an effort on him. And, it just, they weren't willing to do it, or he wasn't willing to do it, or Philadelphia, I guess, wasn't willing to push it. They wanted to at least, maybe be respectful to him. So.
Yeah, and maybe even just ship him out of conference in general, because still, I mean, if they give him the Bears, who knows what happens in playoff time.
Right.
So, but they got rid of the Bears. Got rid of Foles. Is Foles?
No, he's still there.
Oh, he's there. There.
Got rid of Trubisky. Well, we didn't get rid of him. His contract just expired.
Okay, so still got everybody, all 3 there.
No, because Trubisky's gone.
Oh, he's gone.
Yeah,
he signed with Buffalo.
Oh, that's right. Signed with Buffalo, but
and has a better chance of winning Super Bowl now.
I guess my question is, how is Dalton better than those 2? Would you consider him better?
I mean, I guess he can. I guess he can throw a ball more reliably than Mitch Trubisky. Foles seems to be like, I don't know. Foles seems to be a situation where if everything goes right for him, or he can get hot and do well, but otherwise, so I guess Andy Dalton is an upgrade. But
what's the question mark?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
It's interesting. I guess he's more reliable. Maybe could be more consistent. Because where did Fitzpatrick end up going?
Washington. Oh, that's gonna be fun.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't wait for that. That's gonna be the best.
Well, I mean, there's buzz that Washington's going to move up for a QB too, right?
Yeah, there's a chance that they might, but I don't think they start him day one though. I think they still slot Fitzpatrick in, similar to how they did with Tua. So,
yeah, I mean, I don't think signing Ryan Fitzpatrick, in any way is like they're like, no, we're good now.
We got our quarterback.
Yeah, we've got our future. So yeah, I think that could still happen, but it'll be interesting to see like how many consecutive quarterbacks go off the board in the draft. But yeah, so I guess to pivot
we want to come back to Wentz.
Yeah. So yeah, I under the circumstances, I like the move. I mean, I wish the Colts had like a top 3 pick or something where they could go get a Zach Wilson or, take a chance on one of those other guys. But, I mean, they're at 21, last year would have been the time to try to trade up if you were going to do that, because you were at 13, I believe it was.
That sounds right.
And they traded that pick for DeForest Buckner, which, I mean, I can't complain about. I mean, you're getting a Pro Bowl type all pro defensive tackle. But at the same time, but nobody knew what Herbert was going to be. Nobody knew what Tua was going to be. So, I mean, in through hindsight, if they could have traded up and gotten Herbert, that would have been then the ideal thing. But you never know. And so now, I mean, just at 21, it just isn't realistic. Unless like a Mac Jones falls or something like that. And you really like him. Otherwise, it's just not working. So to give up a third and a second that could become a first, depending on what happens with Wentz, I'm okay with that. He was, his second year, I mean, he was like MVP candidate his second year. And then it just kept going downhill. And I mean, I guess I tend to believe in the fact that organizations, especially an NFL organization with so many things going on, that it can just be like a domino effect of things start going badly and they just go downhill everywhere and it drags everything down. I mean, I think he could, get up to a high level of play. I think he's shown he can be a top 10 quarterback or something. So, why not take the chance when mostly what it's costing you is money? I mean, the draft picks they gave up were not that significant. So
like what, a second and a fourth or something like that?
It was a third and a second.
Third and a second.
The second could become a first if he meets certain,
I think it's if he plays 75% of the snaps, which is going to happen, but
unless he gets hurt,
right.
But we talked a lot at the end of last year, or at least I did, and I think we all kind of did, about how important offensive lines were. And we talked at the beginning of the year how bad the Eagles line had deteriorated.
Yeah,
it ended up being like
horrible
at the bottom of
what offensive line?
Yeah. And I mean, injuries even added to the fact that they were older,
and they had no receivers. They had no healthy receivers the entire year.
So he goes to a completely opposite. He goes to a team that's way more like the team when he was MVP candidate.
Yeah, I mean, last year, yeah, like you said, the receiver situation was like, Greg Ward was a sudden superstar
Yep.
for a few weeks, and then
And Travis Fulgham.
Oh
or
yeah,
Fulgham, I'm
your
sorry.
man Fulgham.
Yeah,
Your
Fulgham.
man
Fulgham was the other one,
Yeah.
and then they would just disappear because they weren't that good. It was just, they were just getting tons of targets and stuff. So,
Yeah.
and I mean the Colts don't have the best receiver situation,
Right.
but I think it's serviceable enough, and we'll see what happens with Pittman. We'll see if they add anybody in the draft. But he'll have more time, and like the Colts beat writers, a couple of them, have done blogs, or not really blogs, but like articles for the Athletic, where they've broken down clips of like how much time that Carson Wentz had on some of those throws, where I mean, basically like the ball was snapped and the defensive line was just was in his face in like 1.7 seconds or something like that. Wow. So, a lot of that I think can be corrected. Really, I worry more about his health, because he had
got
always
hit so much.
Well, he got hit so much, and then even prior to that, just every year it was some injury. And so I hate injury prone players. So I'm more iffy about that part of it than I feel pretty good about Frank Reich being able to lift him back up to a competent level. But I don't know. We'll see what happens. But again, under the circumstances, I'm good with the move. So.
Yeah, and I will say the one thing I was a little bit disappointed the Colts didn't do, like this is the team with I think the number 2 or 3 in terms of most free money this year to use. Yeah. Like it was them, Jacksonville, and New England were the top 3. And I was like, okay, they get a quarterback, they get a receiver. I think they're set for like a Super Bowl run at this point for sure. And I'm sorry, Pittman, Hilton, and 3 tight ends and Zach Pascal does not excite me when I knew that Golladay was on the market at that point. Yeah. Like the fact that they didn't sign another big receiver really stuns me, which makes me think, A, they're either looking in the draft to get somebody big, or B, they're just going to be content and sit with $25 million of free space this year. Like that's the thing I didn't understand from Indianapolis this year.
Yeah, and I think it's even a little bit more than that. Like they need an edge rusher. They need to replace their left tackle, Anthony Costanza. Yep. Right, he retired. So, but at the same time, apart from Golladay, like I would have been way more upset, like if Godwin and or Allen Robinson had hit the market and they hadn't paid up for them. Like I like Golladay, but I think the Giants probably overpaid for him, and he's kind of, I don't know if one-dimensional is too harsh on him, but he doesn't get great separation. He's got good, he's able to, just use his hands. Yeah, he's got great hands. He's able to use his size, but in terms of getting separation and stuff, that's not really his thing. So, he's not. I feel like if you're going to pay up that money, do it for a complete receiver, which is why it made me mad when they didn't sign Allen Robinson when he first went on the market after he left Jacksonville. And I was hoping this was an opportunity for them to make up for that, but that didn't work out. But I don't question Chris Ballard that much, in that I'm more frustrated when teams overpay for bad contracts that are going to, when they do it, like, oh my gosh, you just gave like almost top tier money for a guy who's going to be above average at best.
I know all about that
for a year or so, and then 2 years down the line, you're going to be like, oh, this contract is dead weight. So I am okay with his philosophy of trying to build through the draft and that sort of thing. But when you do that, then you really need to hit on your draft picks. So we'll see how that works out.
Well, we're about halfway through. Before we move on to the rookies coming in, the draft coming up, I do want to talk briefly about the craziness that's been Watson problem.
Oh,
I don't want to get into.
As we do, we also need to touch on the new quarterback in your state, Sam Darnold, going from the Jets to the Panthers.
Oh yeah,
that happened out of New York indefinitely.
Yeah. But anyway, I don't want to get into sordid details of Watson, but so let's wrap up with the. I think it's important to wrap up on the quarterbacks because we got a lot of quarterbacks coming in, and there's already been so much settling of the quarterback team problems. Watson seems to be the last one, and I mean, I don't know. Do you guys think that it's over for him? Is he gonna play for anybody?
I don't know. His trade market is very thin at this point. I mean, the Broncos still need a quarterback. I'm sure they should probably be willing to take that risk. I don't know if they are.
What pick are they in the draft?
10, I think.
Okay.
I think they're 10. I'll double check that.
The Patriots, that it feels like almost like a Patriots thing where Bill Belichick will swoop in and like get him for cheap or something, But yeah, it's such a messy situation because a lot of his market has dried up. Maybe Washington still, but if something doesn't happen before the draft and some of these other teams take quarterbacks, then they're not going to be willing to trade that guy. So after the draft, it's going to shrink even more potentially.
Way more. Yeah.
And so I don't really know. And he had prior to that seemed just like dead set on, I'm not playing for the Texans. You might not really have much of a choice at this point. It might like even if they wanted to, they might not really be able to trade you for a fair price. So and the situation itself is so much of a gray area in terms of what the league would do because there's no criminal charges at this point. I don't think. And it's all civil suit stuff and this murky area on a lot of different parts of it where I really just have no idea what is going to happen with that because there's all these little elements and components to it that make it sort of this muddy situation in terms of his NFL future, at least.
Yeah. Any comment?
Yeah, I think Jared put it pretty well. Yeah. It's messed up. It's complicated, but it's the NFL. Like no one knows the heck is going to happen with him. And then of course, contract, whether he'll be in the league even at this point by this time next year. So, I mean, as a player, he's still great, but at this time, I mean, what if he does end up having to go to court for all this stuff? How long, what if he's out of training camp or whatever for X amount of months? So it's just a really big risk for any team to even try to trade for him at this point, I think. And I mean, Houston wisely decided to sign Tyrod Taylor, who, if something happens to Watson, he's out. They at least have a quarterback who can actually play football, who can start for him. And
as long as they don't
wins.
Stab him in the heart.
Exactly. With a needle, but
lung. Yeah. I believe it was the lung.
Oh yeah, lung.
If they'd got his heart, he would have probably been out longer than that. But
yeah.
Well, yeah. Go ahead.
I don't really have anything to add to that.
Yeah, so. I think you brought up an interesting point though that I'm sure Belichick is licking his chops.
Even though they did re-sign Cam. And to be fair, what the heck? The Patriots spent $100 million in free agency this year. What are they doing? Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith, and Kendrick Jason Bourne.
They are.
What is happening? And stinking Nelson Aguilar. Like it's just like the old folks' home of wide receiver twos.
I wonder if it was, it's interesting that happens the off season after Tom Brady goes to another team and wins a Super Bowl. Like you would be tempted. I would be tempted to say that it seems like Bill Belichick then got his feathers ruffled a little bit of like, oh, well, this is not a good look for me. I need to we need to have a better year next year. Maybe not.
For sure.
But it was an off season of spending like they have almost never done. So
yep. That Belichick has really never done.
Yeah.
Like he'll get like a big receiver or something. They've gotten Randy Moss before. They've gotten Antonio Brown, of course, before Deion Branch before that. But like the amount of moves they made, they got 2 starting tight ends on their roster at this point with Hunter and Jonnu. So this is the weirdest roster I've ever seen in my life. And I've had to defend Cam with a whole bunch of people who think he's washed or he's old or whatever. And I'm like, did you see who he was throwing to last year? Julian Edelman with a broken leg and N'Keal Harry while none of his running backs could stay healthy.
Yeah,
but this year it's like Nelson Aguilar and Kendrick Bourne. How is this better? I mean, it is, but how much better is it?
Well, you know who works really good with 2 tight end sets is Watson. Deshaun Watson is like he would fit right into that like big, that big offensive line. Not very, he's got to scramble. Of course, Cam does too. I just don't know how much Cam has left in the tank.
Cam is just he's just inaccurate so much that it's like it makes a difference if he's got better weapons when he can get the ball to them. But I don't have a whole lot of faith in Cam at this point. I mean, I don't know. We'll see what they do, but I just feel like, I mean, maybe if you had added elite, if you had managed somehow to get your hands on a couple of elite receivers, but is Nelson Aguilar and Hunter Henry and Kendrick Bourne and Jonnu Smith, are they, I mean, you're talking there about you're talking about good tight ends, but as far as the receivers go, you maybe have gone from like D receivers to like maybe
C+.
I wouldn't say that far even. Like maybe D to C-, maybe.
Aguilar gets a C+, maybe Aguilar.
Mr. Dropsy himself. I mean,
yeah. But overall, I mean, that if you were where you want to rank that receiver core of where it's been, where it was to where it was elevated to, then you're going like I don't think you're going a full letter grade there. And it was at a failing letter grade already. So I just don't know. It just seems weird. I mean, like if they were close to being a championship team or something before and you want to splurge, but when they were not a playoff team before and you want to splurge, it just seems like Belichick is feeling some like, oh man, and which I love the narrative that came out of this. Like when we got to a Chiefs-Bucks Super Bowl, and I can't remember if I talked about this on here. I think maybe I did. Of like, I was actually kind of rooting for Tom Brady because I don't particularly have any affection for the Chiefs. And I was rooting for him because I knew then the narrative would become, was it just Tom Brady that was making Bill Belichick look good? Because we always go to like the farthest extreme. Like it couldn't be that Belichick just wasn't quite as good of a coach as we thought he was. Like maybe he's an A- instead of an A+. It's like he sucks. He's clearly an F. He's clearly one of the worst, most overrated coaches of all time. And I just love the fact that narrative is going to be out there for him. But I never expected that he would really react to it. And you can say, well, we don't know that he was really reacting to it, but gosh, it sure seems like he's reacting to it, It
really does. Okay, well, to wrap up really quick, the QBs, we had safe space. Sam went to the Panthers. The Panthers. Is he going to see ghosts? Is what everybody wants to know. I do think that he is better than he gets credit for. He's just on a terrible, terrible team with a terrible, terrible offensive line.
With a terrible, 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 terrible head coach in Adam Gase.
Yeah. So like Wentz, I think he's going to do a lot better than people expect. Although he's not going to. I'm trying to remember what the Panthers' offensive line looked like, but it wasn't too bad.
That's fine.
And he gets. I mean, he's going to have McCaffrey. He's going to have DJ Moore. He's going to get back with Robbie Anderson, who he had a decent connection with. They did lose Curtis Samuel to Washington.
Yeah.
But I mean, heck, Christian McCaffrey, DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson. That's nothing to sneeze at. So, and the thing that was interesting that I hadn't really thought of, that I saw somebody point out, and I'll qualify this by saying, once a quarterback gets in the NFL and develops bad habits, man, it's awfully hard. How often do you see them resurrect their careers after that? Almost never.
Right. That's true.
But one thing that I did see people pointing out was he's actually, I think, still slightly younger than Joe Burrow.
Wow.
Yeah.
He's super young.
Yeah.
So
23 or something.
so he's still got, age on his side. And, maybe it can be a kind of a Ryan Tannehill sort of thing where to a greater degree. I don't know.
We're talking about the same coach, right? Gase for both of them.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah.
Everybody blows up once Gase leaves for the most part.
When they leave Gase, they seem to blow up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Everybody.
Well,
Devontae Parker, Ryan Tannehill, everybody.
Yeah.
Except the Chicago offense.
So that wraps up the QB moves. Who are the teams that are left that are looking for a QB? Obviously the Jets and Jacksonville.
Jaguars, yeah.
The Jaguars.
Apparently the 49ers, because there's
And
no
the
other way
49ers.
to trade it up.
So, but that's a good question. Like, if the 49ers, obviously they're looking for a QB, where does Garoppolo go? I heard that the Patriots really were giving him a hard look, but
I mean, I think either stays in San Francisco or goes to the Patriots, because the Patriots have proven that they could do something with him, or at least, well, I don't even remember who his receivers were at the time he was there. So, but yeah,
I think he had Gronk back then, though, didn't he? Wasn't it like Edelman and Gronk when he was backing up Brady at that point?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of a broken Gronk.
Yeah.
Although it's like resurrected Gronk came back in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Well, so other than Trevor Lawrence and
Zach Wilson.
Zach Wilson, you're pretty high on Zach Wilson, huh?
Am I?
I don't know. You mention him all the time.
Well, because everybody knows the Jets are going to take him at 2. Like they said,
so they
that
for
he's
sure.
their guy.
Okay, Zach Wilson.
That will be the biggest surprise of the draft. The Jets don't take Zach Wilson.
Okay, so there's still a whole handful of really good quarterbacks, right?
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. Where would they go that would be significant for fantasy football? Because obviously Trevor Lawrence is going to be significant for
Jacksonville and Marvin Jones.
Oh, that's right. They've got a ton of receivers out there.
Did Jacksonville sign Marvin Jones?
They did, yeah. Which I'm scared now because it's going to be him and DJ Chark and Laviska Shenault and Tyler Eifert and James Robinson and Chris Conley and like 20 other receivers. So that's something, all right.
And then Wilson. I mean, anybody is. Who knows what's going to go on with the Jets?
Yeah.
I think what's kind of interesting is, like, out of, say, the top 12 picks, you've got maybe 2 teams in there that are really like locked into their quarterback, where through a combination of like, is this person that talented, or what's their age, or whatever. And that would be Cincinnati at 5 and Dallas at 10. Everybody else, Jacksonville, the Jets, 49ers. Then you got the Falcons, who seem like they're going to stick with Matt Ryan, but say it turns out they're really high on Fields or something, and Fields, the 49ers go with Trey Lance or Mac Jones or whatever, and Fields is there. Maybe the Falcons drafted Calvin Ridley in a year where they were not expected to, take a wide receiver. Now it's a different administration and all that. But Matt Ryan's getting on up there. So then you got, like I said, the Bengals. Then you got the Dolphins, the Lions, who, are you going to treat Goff like your future? Then you got the Panthers, who, again, they just got Darnold. But if, say, there's someone they love that's there, then you've got the Broncos needing a quarterback.
Yeah.
You've got the Giants. Are they sold on Daniel Jones? And then you've got the Eagles. And so, to me, like, you got about 10 spots there where it could be interesting. And think about the fact that who would have guessed last year? I mean, you could have looked at all of our expressions when the Packers drafted Jordan Love, where we're like, what?
Oh, yeah.
Yep. So I think you just multiply that exponentially this year at the top of the draft.
Is that going to make for an interesting draft or a boring draft?
Oh, I hope it's interesting.
That kind of bores me. Like, it kind of feels like it's just going to be like quarterback. Well,
okay. Well, there's 5 quarterbacks who are going to go in the first round, right? We know Lawrence and Wilson are going to go 1 and 2, 99.9% sure. So that leaves us with Fields, Jones, and Trey Lance, which Jared just said in the top 13, there's 10 possible spots they could go. And that's not even including New England down at 15, anybody else who might want to trade up. So you basically just spin a wheel, throw a dart, and see if you can guess who they're going to end up taking. Yeah. And this isn't even including the fact that we have 5 wide receivers that could go in the first round too.
But from my perspective, I'm not going to draft any of these quarterbacks for fantasy. And, and so this is sort of, for
but depending on what team they go to, though, that could help out any of the other supporting cast.
That's true.
Think Denver. What kind of year are they going to have with Drew Lock if they take a quarterback? 9. What could happen with that with Judy and healthy Sutton at that point, and Noah Fant if he can stay healthy? But
so you wouldn't take. So obviously Trevor Lawrence is going to Jacksonville. We talked about the weapons there in Jacksonville. You wouldn't think about taking Trevor Lawrence or, Justin, I don't know. Let's say whoever goes to San Francisco, where you've got Kittle, you've got Brandon Ayuk, you've got Deebo Samuel. You wouldn't consider taking any of those as a. I mean, but if you play best ball, you're gonna need 3 quarterbacks. So you're probably gonna take a rookie quarterback in best ball.
Yeah. Yeah, and kind of what you were saying about Trevor Lawrence with all the weapons he has. Remember what kind of a year Burrow had in the first half of his year with a just bad offensive Eagles level bad offensive line last year with T. Higgins, 50-year-old AJ Green, and Tyler Boyd, and half a season of Joe Mixon. We saw the kind of fantasy season he put up. He was startable for most of the season. Imagine Lawrence now. Depending on whatever Urban Meyer is going to do, everybody thinks he's he's the next big quarterback prospect since John Elway or whatever. So who knows what he could put up in that kind of offense.
That could be, I mean, Trevor Lawrence, but I guess I'm more interested in where is Etienne going to go? Where is Harris going to go? Where is Chase going to go? You know?
All the wide receivers. Oh, it's going to be fun.
And because now it's it's a lot harder to predict where they're going to go because they're going to because then you have all these really good defensive players that are coming out too. There's a couple real solid defense on offense. Well, there's one really good offensive line guy.
Yeah, well, there's two. Penei Sewell and Rashawn Slater are both projected to go top 10.
I knew about Slater, but who?
Penei Sewell, however you say his name, the dude from Oregon, the tackle from Oregon.
Okay, yeah. And the smart teams are going to just shore up their defense and offensive line and just see who falls to them in the second round.
That would be the most Belichick thing to do.
Unless he's freaked out. Unless we talked last year about how maybe all this time it's been the fear of Tom Brady that's been, Tom Brady in your head that's been defeating teams. Maybe Belichick has Tom Brady in his head.
Well, and another guy, to me, apart from the quarterbacks, maybe the most interesting offensive player of the draft,
tight end,
is Kyle Pitts, tight end. Yeah. I mean, nearly 6'6", runs a 4.4, 40. I mean, you look at what Travis Kelce has done for the Chiefs. I mean, there's no one that has that combo of skills that he's such a nightmare to cover. So, I mean, to me, and then even Gronk in his heyday. Even now, though, I mean, a matchup problem that he can be. So to me, tight end, if you can get an elite tight end, that's just one of those positions that it poses so many problems for other teams because they're not used to having to defend it. And even when they try, it's such a weird unicorn type combination in one of those elite players with elite size and speed and hands that they have so much trouble. And, that's a big deal for what the Chiefs do, especially.
Yeah. Now, but for fantasy though, I'm not too excited.
Really?
I mean, if
for
you
Pitts?
look at what Travis Kelce did his first and second year.
Yeah.
Look at I don't know any tight end that came into the league and was just immediately, I think there was one immediately viable their first year.
Hunter Henry, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, and even though
Hawkinson was kind of, I guess. He hadn't got hurt.
Guess it's all 6.
He had his one big game. Yeah, I mean, we've talked about before tight ends tending to take a while, but I think the Kyle Pitts situation could kind of depend on where he goes too, because even Kelce, Ertz, Kittle, these were all second, third, or second and third round guys. Pitts is likely going to be a top 5 pick. I mean, he's likely 4 or 5. The other thing is they're tending to, with these tight ends who have speed, tending to split them out as a wide receiver more often. And someone with his speed, you could do that more easily. So I think there might be an opportunity for him to sort of be an outlier on that usual tight end where tight ends usually struggle in their first couple years.
I heard a rumor that the Cowboys were going to trade up to get.
They can't get. They need so much more than a tight end, and they need defense.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Right.
See,
that would be a super team, though. I mean, if
super offense, sure, but for fantasy, that's even worse because then you've got Ezekiel Elliott or Pollard, whatever they're going to do in the backfield now, on top of Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup. Then you add Kyle Pitts, and that's just something I never want to touch. That's a nightmare
for fantasy,
for
sure.
real. And out of the teams that are in the top 10 for Kyle Pitts, and like you guys were saying, he's basically a wide receiver at this point, like Jared said. And there's never really been a tight end scouted as high as he has to go top 5. So I don't think the Jaguars take him. Jaguars, Jets, and Niners, I don't think any of them take him. If the Falcons are smart, they'll trade down so that way they get more picks. They don't need a quarterback at this point and just build amass picks at this point if I'm them. And then after that, you've got Cincinnati. And I think Burrow could use a tight end, among other things. Now, is it best for them to take an offensive lineman?
Yes.
Sure. But this is Cincinnati. And Jared always says, and you always say, the assumption of rational coaching.
Yes.
So there's that. And then immediately afterwards, there's Miami, who have a great defense, a great O-line.
And a good tight end.
And a good tight end, true, with Gesicki. But imagine you have Kyle Pitts, you split him out wide along with Devontae Parker. And then after that, you've got Mike Gesicki. And this isn't even talking about Jamar Chase and Devonta Smith and Jalen Waddle, who are also offensive weapons in the draft.
Well, that goes to your point about the Falcons trading down.
Yeah.
I think they could get get a couple really good running backs in this draft without having to spend an early draft pick.
Yeah.
What do you think, Jared? About all that they just went on there.
That's a tough spot for Atlanta potentially. I mean, I think it would depend on. I mean, they've got multiple options there. Atlanta is sort of, they're in a weird spot where they've got, Matt Ryan's got some more years potentially. They could try to restock and in a year make another push, or they could try to rebuild, just start moving towards the future. So I think Atlanta is in some ways sort of an envious spot where they've got options. They could trade down, they could collect picks. They are almost certainly going to have the option of taking Kyle Pitts if he's there. Or if they say, hey, Justin Fields or Trey Lance is here and we think they're our quarterback of the future, we could take them. Yeah. So it's envious for them in some ways because they're going to have options. The other thing is if you don't get it right, then immediately your new administration looks terrible. Yeah. So high pressure situation there for Atlanta's new front office.
Arthur Smith, for a season.
Where do you guys? There's as well as just all a myriad of quarterbacks coming in. There's like a ton of wide receivers that are just highly anticipated.
Yep.
Can you guys? I don't know all their names. Can you guys talk to me a little bit about some of the? I know Chase, obviously.
Jamar Chase.
Jamar Chase, and he's just a beast.
The two Alabama receivers, Devonta Smith and Jalen Waddle. So
and then there's Rashad Bateman, I think is his name, from Purdue, who's just has freakish speed, and then Kadarius Toney or whatever his name is out of Florida, who's projected to go later in the first round, who I hated watching play in the SEC.
Are these fantasy viable?
Oh yes. Oh heck yeah. Oh yeah. Remember how excited I was last year about Justin Jefferson coming into the draft? I'm probably twice as excited for any of those first three.
Really?
Chase or Smith or Waddle, depending on where they go, though. Yeah. That is very, very, very heavily dependent on where they go. Because if any of them goes to Detroit, I'm freaking out because I don't know how Jared Goff's going to do there. If any of them go to Miami, then I'm excited because you've got Parker to offset you at that point, and it's a lot easier. Even though I know everyone's worried about Tua, but I like it better than a lot of the other picks in the top 10.
Where's the sweet spot to go for? Give me a couple sweet spots to go if you're a wide receiver coming into the league for fantasy.
Yeah. So the places that they are kind of currently projected to go are not what I would call ideal situations. So right now, Mel Kiper's mock draft has the three of them going, has Chase in this order, Chase, Smith, and Waddle going to Philadelphia, Detroit, and Miami. None of those are super exciting for me. And, I mean, I really don't know what last year. I think there were some obvious spots where I hope this guy goes here. This could be a good situation for him, or I hope he goes here. And then most of those ended up not really happening. Just the fact that Ruggs went off the board first, we're like, okay, that's weird. At best, maybe 2 or 3 years down the line, this starts to pay off, but year one, it's probably not going to pay off very well. And it didn't. Now, there just aren't like a ton of eye-popping situations where until you get like later in the draft, and even then, those guys aren't going to last that long. So if you had Indianapolis with a high pick up there, then that could be interesting to see one of those guys go into that sort of situation. But just the way it is, I don't know. I'll be kind of scared about where they go.
I redact my previous statement about my excitement for wide receivers this year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You never know. I mean, it's going to be a crazy draft.
Yeah.
Jared, what were you saying?
I mean, well, I was going to say, like Philadelphia, Jalen Hurts he'll have another year of experience. And last year, it was really hard. He was great as a fill-in fantasy quarterback. But as far as like him getting the ball to other people, that wasn't great, but it's hard to know how much was him. And just like we said with Wentz, how much was just having garbage to throw to. So I think Philadelphia is definitely the best, possibility there. And Detroit, with Jared Goff, we don't particularly love Jared Goff. I guess that goes without saying, but Robert Woods and what's the other little receiver there?
Little blondie. I can't remember his name.
I'm blanking out.
I'm blanking.
In Detroit?
No, in the Rams.
Cooper Kupp.
Cooper Kupp. Okay, Cooper Kupp. It's been too long. I'm blanking out on some of these guys. Yeah. So Woods and Cooper Kupp, they were able to, function well under Goff.
Yeah.
But he's not like a downfield thrower, so you got to be able to run some of those good underneath routes and stuff like that. Is a young receiver going to be able to do that? And then Tua, I'm iffy on Tua. So I don't know. I would have some concerns about some of these guys, but the way it ended up shaking out last year was not really kind of how I was expecting. So maybe something different will happen this year, but just on the topic of receivers, if it does end up being Fitzpatrick, as the starter in Washington, like Terry McLaurin's stock is looking pretty good there. Yeah. He's gonna have like a Parker year there coming his way from Ryan Fitzpatrick throwing those deep balls to him.
Yeah, and I will say, Jared, the point you brought up about how Goff would need someone to do really well underneath, kind of like Cooper Kupp did, and Robert Woods would run underneath a lot for him. If the Lions took Devonta Smith, I think he would fit the best out of those three because his route running is near perfection his route running is out of this world. So if Smith went to Detroit, I think he could do a good job across the middle and underneath for Jared Goff. Out of those three receivers, I think he could function really well there. Of course, you wouldn't really have anyone to be opposite him since Golladay and Marvin Jones are gone, but he'd definitely be that number one for sure. I think he could do well out of those three.
Might be pretty good for fantasy.
Yeah, I think he could be a good late round pick.
Although, late round pick. Yeah, because he's going to be on a terrible team. Well, let's wrap up pretty soon. But what about so who do you think Pitt is going to then? Now, you guys talked a lot about some people loving him, but where is he going to go? I don't see a great spot for him. I see a lot of people saying Philadelphia, but they're obviously going to take Chase over Pitt, right?
Yeah, there's no way he falls to them, though.
Yeah, I don't.
Way. They're at 12 or something like that?
Wait, no. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I'm mixing green teams.
Yeah, they
I saw some people projecting him to go to the Jets.
No,
but that was that was before they got rid of Safe Space Sam. So where does he go? I just don't see a great place for him.
I think he goes no later than 6. I think he either goes to the Falcons, goes to the Bengals, goes to the Dolphins.
Bengals is what you said.
That's what I said.
Or someone trades up to get him. So I think at worst 6 for Pitt, and probably I think it's possible it could be 5 or 6 because you may have 4 quarterbacks go in that order. So I think no later than 6 for him though. And again, I would just, if I was a team, you taking looking at a weapon. Again, those wide receivers are very good, but you're getting such a unique weapon with him that if the grades are basically even, I'm going with him over a wide receiver.
I could see an administration or at least a coaching administration coaching team saying to like make an excuse. Well, as a tight end, we're kind of fudging on the offensive line side of things too. Although he's not great,
He's not a blocker.
He's not great
not
as a blocker. You could kind of see them making the case. Well, we'll work with it. Yeah, he's at least a big body out there. You know. I'm just thinking of for the Bengals because they desperately need an offensive.
If he goes to Cincinnati, I'll say this: like Jared said, no lower than 6. If he goes to Atlanta, I will crack up laughing because offensive weapons is the last thing they need. If he goes to Cincinnati, I'll be happy for fantasy, but sad for their entire fan base because Burrow's still unprotected. And if he goes to Miami, I'll be like, all right. Good pick.
Yeah.
I'm cool with that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, and especially even, what was it that the Falcons traded last year? Was it a second to get Hayden Hurst?
I don't remember.
Let me look real quick. But
I thought it was like was it a second? That would have been kind of rich.
Yeah, second round pick, and a 5th rounder.
Okay.
Yeah,
from last year, second. And
so I mean, not that teams doing something the year before can, preclude them from changing their mind a year later, but that's you trade a second and a 5th to go get a tight end, and then you need to go get. But I mean, and Hurst was okay at times, but not, I think, what they probably hoped he would be, and certainly not what I hoped he would be for fantasy. I mean, man, he had some games where he would just disappear. So, I think there is a very good chance. If I had to bet, I would bet that Cincinnati takes him because, they're just all about that. They're never trying to win. They're just trying to put people in the seats and make money and go home and their owner, what's his name? Mike, can't remember his last name, but just looking Brown, I think maybe it is.
Mike Brown.
Yeah, he's I'm sure quite comfortable, watching the playoffs at home on his giant flat screen
without any
counting, swimming in his Scrooge McDuck money bin. So he will take probably a tight end and then just let Joe Burrow run for his life again.
Yeah, this poor guy. Well, and then we have the running backs, and I think this is pretty interesting because we've got 2 like superstars at the top with Etienne and Harris, but then we have the 2 the UNC guys that are really good.
And I can't remember their names.
Brown, I think, and I can't remember their names.
I'll look it up.
Okay, look it up. And you have a handful of good running backs that are in this draft class.
Javonte Williams and Michael Carter.
And Carter. I was way off. Okay. Williams, Carter. Who are some of the other?
Najee Harris from Alabama.
Yeah, Harris and Etienne, who I was talking about, are the 2 elite at the top.
Mm-hmm.
Then you got Williams and Carter. Yep. There's another couple of guys, though, that
Trey
are probably...
Sermon, Ohio State, Kenneth Gainwell, Memphis, Jermar Jefferson, Oregon State.
Yeah, okay. Jefferson, I've heard a lot of buzz about. Now, not guys that are going to go in the first round, but definitely guys that could help a team.
I don't even know if any of them are going to go.
You don't think so? That's a good question.
It is possible.
Harris has got to go first.
Right? So I know there's like a debate between Etienne and Harris. I'm Team Harris who I would like better on my team for the most part. But like what if they're going to go probably later in the draft because there's such a full roster of quarterbacks, wide receivers, and offensive linemen and defensemen for the draft. And then you look at the end of the draft, it's like, who really needs a running back? Packers got Aaron Jones. Chiefs have CEH, and the Bucks have 4 running backs. So what are the chances of them actually? They're great talents, but do any of the teams need them over getting someone on defense or an O lineman? Oh, who?
Falcons.
They're pick. Oh no, but they're early second round though.
I thought we just established that the Falcons shouldn't draft offensive weapons. You're talking about in the second round or what?
Yeah, no, I'm talking about. I think that they're gonna. That's where Harris.
They're gonna trade down and get him in the first round.
I think they're gonna get Harris in the first round.
Okay,
man, they're gonna trade way down for that.
Yeah,
you think so?
I think they'd have to. Yeah, I mean, they just signed Mike Davis too. So
Davis though.
Oh, I mean, he was
Yeah.
he was doing a little CMC impression there at
Yeah.
the end of last
So
year.
you think they stick with Davis and they go?
I think they wait early second round. I think they get him.
I
They've
guess
got the
they could.
third pick in the second round. It's possible
They
that
could get a
him.
good. They definitely could get a good.
Oh
rookie.
yeah,
You're
especially because
You
the
get
Jags
Carter
have
Williams
James Robinson.
easily,
Yeah, I
yeah.
could see the Jets taking one of them, either Etienne or Harris. I don't think the Jags will because they have James Robinson. So the Falcons just take whoever's at 4 because 3. I can't remember who's at pick 3 again. Houston, I think. I don't know what they're gonna do, so they could take 1 too. But yeah, even at that point, take Javonte instead. But
No.
Atlanta has so many needs on defense, though they cannot take an RB in the first round.
Who has no? Houston got rid of their pick. Who?
No, it's
Who-
3. San Francisco's at 3 because they. Is that what
They
we were talking
traded
about?
up.
In the second
second
round,
round,
in the
though.
second
Oh,
round.
in the second round. Sorry. Yeah.
We're talking about the second round for.
It probably is
Do you-
Houston because it was originally Houston's pick that went to Miami and then from Miami to
Right.
San Francisco. So yeah.
Do you think that there's not going to be any running backs in the first round?
Well, it's probably no. I think there'll probably be somebody. I mean, but like last year, CEH went with the last pick. I believe it was the last pick of the first round to
Yep.
Yeah.
the Chiefs. I don't know. I mean, I was trying to look at draft order here to see. I got to pull up the draft order to see who might be likely to take one. Because
the bottom 10 from like 25 to 32 is Jacksonville, Cleveland, Baltimore, New Orleans, Green Bay, Buffalo, KC, Tampa, and then Jacksonville, New York, and the Falcons have the third pick in round 2, and the Dolphins have the fourth one. That doesn't make sense to me. But other than that,
so
Ooh.
I mean, you look at so I think we could go up, farther than that even to where let's see. So I think, potentially the Jets with their second pick, which they've got they've got the 23rd pick from Seattle. I guess that was
True.
the trade
Jamal
for
Adams trade.
Jamal Adams, yeah. So they need a running back, and Pittsburgh, Pittsburgh let James Conner go. Not that James Conner was really, the solution there anyway. They've sort of used a committee, but maybe they want to get back to having more like a true running back because Ben Roethlisberger is not going to carry them to a Super Bowl.
True.
So
That is a good point.
I think the Jets and the Steelers are both possibilities there, because then you look at like Jacksonville, James Robinson was pretty serviceable last year. Cleveland, they've got their running backs. The Ravens like to collect running backs, and they let Mark Ingram go. So the Ravens could very well take a running back there. Probably not the Saints. The Packers would be crazy if they do. Buffalo, maybe. I mean, Buffalo is
true.
either one of those running backs really impressing me that much. I don't know. So I would say, that towards the bottom of the first round there, some teams like the Jets, the Steelers, the Bills, and then like when you're in the bottom of the first round, then you get into the possibility that, a team trades back up, into the round. So, maybe the Falcons, I don't think the Falcons would trade down that far, but maybe they could trade back up into it. But it'll be interesting because, there's not a lot of like super running back needy teams, that really jump out this year to me.
Now, what about the Bears? I'm sorry, I missed. Did you talk about the Bears? Like, that's a potential place for
running back need.
Yeah.
No. We've got David Montgomery finished with 1,000 yards last year behind a mediocre offensive line, mediocre to bad offensive line, and then we just signed Damian Williams, who, if you remember, was the person who. No, he's going to make the cut. This is the guy who came. He didn't play last year because he opted out, and the year before he was instrumental in the Chiefs winning the Super Bowl. And then after that, we have Tariq Cohen coming back, who's our receiving back, who's healthy. So we already have 3 running backs. I don't think we take another, if only for the amount of running backs we have.
I would think Montgomery's I mean, granted, it was against bad teams. They were very bad teams, but he did well towards the end of the year. I would think that they would probably use that on something else, but we'll see.
What about Patriots? I mean, are they going to rely on Harris?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that's a possibility, but they're kind of in a tough spot where maybe they could trade down. If they can't trade up, then maybe they trade down and take one, because they're kind of in a spot where it might not be the smartest to take a running back, or maybe they trade up with their second pick or something. But yeah, and the interesting thing somebody pointed out about the Patriots is, I think they said that since 2010, so over the last decade, Bill Belichick has only drafted 2 Pro Bowlers, and
wow,
I think one of, and they weren't, like, one of them was at a position. Let me look real quick here, because this was
that's
stunning
stunning
stat.
I mean, he drafted Gronk and Brady, right?
Well, since 2010, though.
Yeah,
but since 2010. Since 2010. Gotcha.
Yeah, I don't know if I can find this now, but it was basically saying something like,
right. It's really fallen off.
Yeah,
well, also partially because they trade out of the first round every single year.
Yeah. So maybe he needs to not do that. Maybe he needs to just stay where he is, or trade up, and not, because that was kind of the thing for a while. Is like, oh, they're good enough that they can find players deeper in the draft, and then he kind of stopped doing that. That kind of dried up. So yeah, I can't find it, but it was like two Pro Bowlers over the last 10 years that he had drafted, and one of them was something like a long snapper or a punter or something. And then the other one was, I think, a linebacker, but it was bad.
Well, guys, you've got a long way not a long way, but you got to drive home, and he's driving all the way to Chicago tonight.
Not tonight.
I was going to say, yeah, that's going to
be no, he's going to be you got to drive to the beach, right? And I've got to get to bed, but it's good to be back.
Yeah, I missed this.
Jared, thank you for joining us, man. This has been good. Do we want to get back on a regular schedule?
Well, I mean, again, the draft's in 12 days, so I mean, I think we should probably just go ahead and do something sometime next week, because otherwise it's kind of weird to come back and then take a week off and then do the draft. So. I would say. How about
next Saturday night work for you?
Probably so. Like my schedule is kind of crazy these days, and so Tuesdays are definitely not great for me right now. And there's no need. I mean, we don't have a waiver wire to point people to right now. So I don't know how that's going to work during the season.
Well, let's shoot for next Saturday, sometime next Saturday. Like either mornings don't.
We'll figure it out
for me, but evenings will work for you.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
and maybe you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, next Saturday night should be fine. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, unless we have anything else to go over, I'm going to get the old outro ready here.
Yeah, no comments. Our only comment was MathQuest. Roto Hackers are back. That was,
and then he laughed.
Which we appreciate. But
we appreciate that.
Nothing. Nobody else hanging out on a Saturday night waiting for fantasy football advice.
Out of nowhere with no announcement.
Just out of nowhere, yeah. Although I am kind of getting like already like, okay, I want to draft a team,
I forgot to ask you, I was going to ask you, when do best balls start? When do best balls start? It's out, right?
No, not for Yahoo. I don't know. I think I think last year there was some free league I did that was like right after the draft or something in April, maybe. And then they shut them down till like June. But I really want to I would love for best ball to start up like the day after the draft or something.
Usually they start before the. Well, you can do if you want to do best ball. The best place for that is MFL Draft. MFL, I think it's called. But I gotta look that up because I do want to get some. If there are any out there, I want to get a.
We do this every year. We immediately get into a drafting mood, and then by July, we close out.
I can't I'm too busy this year. I can't draft a ton of teams this year, but I do.
You guys promised me, right? You're keeping me to 6.
Yes,
I'll do best ball, and then
and we got to figure out what we're doing for our Roto Hackers League this year, or whether we're doing the 12 again or a Dynasty League or what.
We got to do Dynasty.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that does it. And it's great reconnecting with you, Jared, and Anthony. And we got to say goodbye.
We'll be back eventually.
We'll be back next week.
We'll be sure not to tell everybody.
Goodbye, everybody. Have a good night.